my channel. Today, in this video, we are going to be interviewing Professor Filipa here at Berkeley. Such a good scientist that she even has her own laboratory here in the University of Berkeley, one of the best universities in the world. We are going to be interviewing her, one of the top researchers to fight against malaria, the Circadian Rhythm. But before that we get right into the video, let's first talk about what is a Circadian Rhythm and what is malaria. So first of all, malaria is a parasite, a very deadly parasite that kills hundreds of thousands of kids around the world, probably each month. And scientists around the world try to fight against this parasite and many other parasites with different ways, and one of them is circadian rhythm, like I mentioned. So, what is the circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is one of the 4 rhythms of our body that makes us feel things. Not the senses, that is different. This is of how we feel. And the circadian rhythm is an internal body clock that changes in terms of if it's light outside, if it's dark outside, if it's hot outside or cold outside. So our body adapts to it, and circadian rhythm plays its role of changing how we feel. It can make us feel energized, sleepy, tired, or hungry. Many more things. For example, when you're at night and you're driving on the road and there are these lamps, your mind gets a little bit set off track because it sees light from the lamp and it sees dark from the night. So it gets a little confused. That is one of the points that I'm trying to put, but that your internal body clock can also get moved and disturbed. And other ways that your circadian rhythm can get disturbed is by jet lag, when you fly to different countries and you don't sleep in the airplane, or when you move to different time zones, or when, for example, you don't sleep well, or you sleep late night. So just a way to change all of that and to make it a little bit healthier, so you have to sleep on a comfortable mattress, you have to sleep early and not too late. That's just ways how to prevent it. And now let's talk about how the circadian rhythm is in our body. So the circadian rhythm is in your brain somewhere. And when you're a baby, you don't have any, so you can sleep as much as you want. But then when you become a kid, you have a small one, then you have strict time zones when you sleep. Because your brain shuts down and gets tired in a specific time. And then, when you get a teenagerhood, you start becoming an adult. And when you get to that part, then it gets a little bit complicated, because at night, then you might not feel tired. That's when you start becoming an adult. But then when you become an adult, you feel that, but still you can sleep easier. And that's when your circadian rhythm is big, which is a part in the middle of your brain. Big. And that is really just the basic of circadian rhythm. So now we are here in the Microscope Room, where the scientists take the things called smears, where there's the human blood or the mouse blood, and we take it, we put it under the microscope, and we can see the parasite. And what happens is that when we take this parasite, like malaria or something else, we can see it because this microscope, like any other, is amplified to 1,000 times. So this is zoomed in by 1,000 times. from our normal view, our eyesight view. So it's really amplified. And in purple, you can see the parasites. So now, with this high-tech technology of these days, we can use these photographic scopes, and we can pull this pin right over here to put an image on screen. So before we talk about what all of that is, let's quickly understand one very important thing of what we have as a sample. Right now, our sample and these parasites are dead, so that's why all of this is purple. I'll explain why it is all purple in a second. I'll just try to clarify that this is dead because it is not in an immune system in a body. It's not in a mosquito that transfers it, or it's not in the human body. So it dies because it has no place to be in, and it's not hot enough to live or cold enough. So just to clarify, it is dead right now. Now let's talk about what all of this is. So all of these circles are blood cells in our blood flow. And the purplish, the very blue and purple, that is all of the parasite, like malaria, for example. But in this case, I don't think it is malaria. So that is all some parasite. And you can know if it is infected, the blood cell, if it has what you call nucleus. It's when it has a small circle in the middle that has nothing. And when it also, like here, it has a circle, a white circle in there, which has a nucleus, that is nucleus, the center of your blood cell. And you have that purple, which is the parasite. And we also have these, what you call blood cells again, except the reason why they're purple is not that they're infected. It's because they're entirely new. They just made blood cells. They just became blood cells. That's why it is so light and it's so big like that. They're newly made. And finally, these huge purplish thingies, that's our immune system trying to fight against the parasite. And here, as I told you, it's dead, so there's nothing happening for now. So right now the parasite won over everything with the blood. So right now it's killed it, and the parasite's also dead. Anyways, so this is a dead body of it, all of this. So the reason why it's so purplish is because the parasite took over the immune system trying to fight against the parasite. So that's how it works, and how these telegraphs, I believe that's what they're called, yes. That's how we can use them in biology. And we can see that you might not see it, but actually in these small cells, it's the immune system trying to fight against the parasite, like I told you guys. And here, the newly made blood cell, there's a little bit of DNA in it. And the reason why this newly made blood cell is purple is because, like the parasites, they have nucleus. And when they're newly made, they have a lot of nucleus, and they have some DNA. And after, when they try to get more older, and they try to remove all of the nucleus in the cell. And when it's a red cell, red blood cell, like this one and this one, not infected, then it will remove all of the nucleus, like the parasite has, and it will just be normal, because red blood cells don't have any nucleus. But also, the origin of these newly made blood cells are usually always coming from our bones. And there are also some examples of infected newly blood cells. I think we might find an example today. Anyways, but it's actually very preferred from parasites like malaria to go with those newly made blood cells. Here I found some examples about some infected new blood cells, which you can call reticulocytes, these newly made blood cells. And here we have some examples of some that are infected, like that one, that is infected. You see a lot of purple in that, which also looks like a pumpkin anyways. Here we have also some newly made. These are a little bit older because you can see they're not as purplish as these ones, but they're still infected. And these you might not see very well, but they're still infected. You can see, wait 1 second, here. There's really, you can't really see that well, but there's a dot there. It's very common that you see a newly made blood cell that's infected. So here we have an example of some mosquitoes who do have malaria, but if they were to bite me, for example, if I were to put my hand in there, I wouldn't get malaria because this malaria is meant for rats and mouses. It can only affect them. So if they were to bite a mouse or rat, then they would get the malaria and then they can transfer it. But if the mosquito had a human malaria, I would get it. And these are female, because fun fact, only female mosquitoes bite. Male mosquitoes go to the plants and eat their nectar. And these mosquitoes, when they're newly born, they have approximately 40 days to live after they die, like all of these mosquitoes over here. Tragic. They need the blood to make the babies and the eggs. And they make approximately 100 eggs per each time. They'll make 100 eggs. Man, that's a lot. So now that we got that circadian rhythm stuff, let's get to the interview with Professor Filipa. So here we have Professor Filipa. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. And we're going to be interviewing her on, you tell me.
Well, I guess we are here at the University of California, Berkeley. We are a lab that studies malaria parasites and circadian rhythms.
So, first question, why did you start being a researcher in circadian rhythms to fight against malaria?
Yeah, so I have actually been thinking about this for a long time now. So when I started my PhD, I was very interested in another parasitic disease called sleeping sickness. So as you can see, sleeping sickness name already connects to circadian rhythms because circadian rhythms and sleep are very linked. But it turns out that, for example, the sleeping sickness infection, it doesn't seem that the person that is infected is sleeping more, but instead it's sleeping at the wrong time of the day. So it's sleeping more during the daytime, so it appears to their friends and family that they are sleeping a lot, but they are actually having also insomnia at night, right? So they are shifted, and this is what we now know, that circadian rhythms are really what control the time that you do a lot of things, the time that you feel hungry, the time that you want to go to bed, right? And so it turns out that the sleeping sickness infection was shifting the clock. So this was the first link. But this is not unique to that parasitic infection. Malaria, that's of course what you're here and you've been very interested about. It's actually very famous for periodic fevers. So fevers that come and go at certain times of the day. The person has a fever and then it feels better the next day again at the same time, right? So these are things that seem to happen daily, and they are multiple of 24 hours, which is again very linked to the Earth rotation that promotes day and night cycles for everyone on Earth.
So you were interested in how this body clock can change the way that we feel and the way that this parasite can affect us and the way that it can change.
That's right. So think about it. If us animals, if we have evolved,
I mean, biologically we're animals.
We are animals, humans are animals too, right? So if us, all the animals on Earth, have been exposed to these day and night cycles, like light during the daytime, darkness at night, and we evolved a circadian rhythm to anticipate these changes, right? We don't need the light to come to know it's day. Our body has, like you were explaining, inside the brain, right? There's an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus that is sending this information. So we know we have our internal clock to know. We don't need to look outside to know the
So
time.
it's like a clock,
Yes.
but much more precise and much better.
Exactly, a biological one, right? So it's a
cooler.
combination
So
of networks, similar like a clock that you have a lot of cogs that are all linked to each other. This is the same, but at the gene level.
Thank you very much. But how did you start being a scientist in this domain?
Mhm. Well, I think it was only when I went on to my 7th grade and 8th grade that I had very, very cool biology teachers that were very young and very approachable, that really shared their passion for science, for these biological aspects of science. And that got me very much encouraged to see reflected in them also a young women, right? Both of them, they were having trained on these and had found
So
their
you-
passion.
So you got inspired by people who were doing the same thing of what you're doing right now.
That's
you got
right.
inspired that there were female scientists that were working a lot, and you were just inspired because there are not enough of them.
That's absolutely
So
right.
you wanted to join them.
Representation. Exactly. Representation, right? When you see that other women can also be scientists, and they also look like then you can trust your curiosity.
Okay.
Right? You're like, maybe I can do it too.
Thank you. And how can you use the different phases? When I mean phases, I mean different behaviors of the circadian rhythm to affect our parasites.
That's right. So similar, like we are very much in sync with the world around us, we thought that these one-cell parasites, called malaria parasites, right? If they are inside our body, they are going to be exposed to our own daily rhythms. So our temperature drops at night while we are sleeping. It's higher during the day while we are active. Hormones, nutrients, it's also changing because you know that usually while you're sleeping, you're not eating, right? So the nutrients that these parasites are going to have available to them are also going to be very different from day to night.
So does it affect us when we're sleeping? Does that mean that it dies when we're sleeping, or?
It doesn't die, but it's timing when it's replicating to take advantage potentially of the abundance of nutrients that we have around during the daytime. And then it's maybe doing other things of their biology that is not replicating during the night, right? So it's just timing what it does during the day, depending on what the environment of our body is allowing.
Thank you. So you're saying that when it's at night, it's stopping for now, and then when it comes the day, it strikes even harder.
During day and night, our body is actually very different. During the daytime, we are having our body clock want us to feel hungry, and then we ingest different types of feeding, right? And so we eat. So what happened is that now there's a lot of nutrients available. So if you think
For
now,
our
own energy, exactly,
And
but
also
also
for the
for the parasites, right?
like when you make a baby, the baby gets the food that you eat.
That's absolutely true, right? So the parasites are going to be in circulation inside the red blood cells.
But when you eat, does it make more heat?
No, actually, it's not necessarily linked to the heme, but for example, one of the things it does is iron, which is very much linked also to heme and oxygen
So it's
transport.
making more heat. It's making
In a
more
way, yes, more available to the parasites. It's one of the nutrients that might be changing throughout the day.
But when it's nighttime, it can't eat, so it can't multiply.
Yes, so actually, for example,
So it wouldn't stop. It would pause.
yeah, in a way. So sometimes it could be, you can think about like across the day, the parasite could be first what we call transcribing. So it's going to be producing a lot of messages to prepare for when it's time to actually divide, right? So it can be doing those things and then waiting for a certain signal, a certain nutrient, and then complete what it has been preparing for, right? So we can think about that multiplication to be timed when more nutrients are available. This doesn't mean that it has not been preparing the entire day for it, right? Another thing we know is that what really causes the fever is that these tiny one-cell parasites that are inside our red blood cells, and then the red blood cells are actually going to be bursting because of the parasites, but they are doing this synchronously. So a parasite
happen in a very, very specific time of the day. It's going to repeat every day at the same time.
Exactly. And if you are a red blood cell that is infected, and I am a red blood cell that is infected, we are both going to be bursting at the same time. And so now there's going to be this massive release of millions of parasites at one time. And our immune system is going to sense this, right? So it's going to be increasing very highly the temperature to fight it. So it's going to have a fever. And that happens all again next day.
If it doesn't have a fever, well, I believe that I would corrupt it directly. I would get way more parasite over the body.
Exactly. It's a way to fight it. That's right. It's
but if you don't fight it, would it kill you directly or would it just go faster?
So in general,
if you didn't have this, if you didn't have this,
in general, it's actually a balance between parasite numbers and also how
we will be dead.
We will be dead, of course. If there's not a good immune response to the parasites, it will be dead. But sometimes you have the opposite, is an unguided immune response, kind of like a too harsh response of our body can also be very damaging for our own health. So it has to be a well-balanced thing. And interestingly, the immune system itself, it's also very rhythmic. In fact, the immune system is very much under circadian control. So for example, red blood cells, they are produced from the bone marrow from our bones.
Like we saw before.
That's right. But other immune cells also come out of the bone marrow, for example, macrophages. These are cells that are going to be eating the infected red blood cells.
Which is good.
Which is very good.
But it's going to get infected like we saw before.
Yes, but actually they do get infected. They have the parasite DNA in them because they ingested an infected red blood cell.
Also, the parasite is alive.
But it kills it. The macrophages are able to kill it. But interestingly, these macrophages are not coming out of the bone marrow at all the times. They usually come out during the nighttime. So there's also a time of the day.
It's not really useful because it can save you, but when it saves you, it's not there to save anything because it doesn't multiply and it's hiding the parasite.
A little bit of that. That's right. So it's kind of like probably what happens is that the parasite and the immune system and the host have co-evolved, right? Meaning that they have found ways to escape one another, right? And you're right. Maybe what the parasite is doing is whenever it's coming out of the red blood cells, it's multiplying. Probably it's not at the time that, for example, the macrophages are there to eat them, right? So you're absolutely right. There might be a component of that.
Do you think that it is possible to use circadian rhythm, this night cycle when it comes night, to shut down the whole parasite? Did you get to that point of your research? And did scientists
not?
Yes. But that's still a thing that you're working on.
That's right. So
it is a possibility, but it's not sure that you can use the circadian rhythm. It's still like it could work.
An hypothesis.
Yeah,
right?
hypothesis.
Is a very strong core hypothesis for
but
us.
Still, we're not even sure if all of this hypothesis in this laboratory is going to work. But it can work. If it works, it'll be great.
That's right. So the majority of time, whenever we have a research lab that is interested in what we call fundamental biology,
there
right?
are some people that know that.
That's
and
right. So you ask questions that is mostly at the core for understanding. And of course, you always have insight that hopefully this can be very useful in the long term to fight the infections, right?
Why are we even searching any more hypotheses if, like you said, we have a cure for it?
Yes. the main reason why it's still very
Is it
worthwhile.
because the mosquitoes get used to it and they find ways? Sorry, not the mosquitoes, the malaria. And they find ways to fight against this.
That's right.
So now they're fighting with.
They are
Most of them
evolving
evolving.
themselves.
So now we have to also evolve in our army of medication.
Absolutely. So they as time goes by and people apply different anti-malarials, there is always an evolutionary pressure for parasites to escape it, and they do. So there is resistance currently to all the anti-malarials.
So this hypothesis might be, it's a 50-50, more of a 60-40 anyway.
I don't know.
I would say 60-40 way, or 40-50 anyways, way of evolving and killing it once again. And how long do you think that this is going to continue itself? When do you think is it going to stop, and when the malaria can't evolve anymore?
Well, actually, there has been, I think this is, unfortunately, it's going to be a long time fighting ahead of us. But there's a lot of people taking many different approaches to it, right?
But is it possible?
Even recently, I don't know if you have read, but actually a couple of years ago, the first anti-malarial vaccine was deployed in 3 countries in Africa. And this is not a great vaccine if you compare it, for example, for how we know from COVID, right? That it has been it's been amazing in terms of how much protection it gives. This is probably around 30% protection, so it still means that 70% of the people will not have necessarily the prevention from having getting malaria, right? Getting sick, but it's still way more than zero.
So there's
right?
still, it's better than zero, but there's still a chance that one day this war is going to stop.
There is definitely the hope for that.
Now we'll get into 2 last questions. So, are you working on anything that might be able to revolutionize this research here in the laboratory?
Well, I think one of the projects that I'm very excited about is about studying whether, like we know very well the parasite rhythms when inside the human host or the mouse, but we don't know a lot about these daily rhythms of the parasites when they are inside the mosquitoes. So we are actually very, very interested in studying the mosquito salivary glands, because those are going to be very important.
Saliva.
Exactly, where the saliva is
And
produced.
that's why the malaria is.
There is the malaria parasites are right before being transmitted when the mosquito is biting. So we are very much excited about that in trying to study if there are daily rhythms in the transmission, because the mosquito themselves also prefers to bite at nighttime. So there is another time aspect to this infection.
I've seen that on TV when they were talking about the malaria, and they were saying, like, in America, I think this was an old clip, in America, they were saying that now there was some malaria mosquitoes that came, and they said that don't go when it's nighttime, because then there would be a lot of mosquitoes out and you have a high chance to get malaria.
That is true. Actually, just a couple of weeks ago, there were the confirmation from CDC that there have been malaria transmission happening in Texas. So there has been now cases confirmed.
That was the video that I watched.
Maybe that was it. So yes, of course, with climate change and how things are changing, maybe more and more of these cases are going to exist. So maybe even places that used to have malaria, like in Europe, and then this has been eradicated, right? It could be that things will change again. So it's very important to continue studying.
And do you have any future goals that you think might be very fun and might be a little bit complicated?
Well, I think one of my major goals is actually to train the next generation of scientists. I'm very excited to be here in a university that will have both undergrad and biology. That's right.
Is it the biology of plants up there?
Over in this building, there's a lot of people that study biology of plants, biology of infections.
So that
not plants.
Not plants, but infection.
Infection. That's right. And this is a university that has, of course, a very strong mission to also be a very diverse pool of students, and I do care for that a lot. And so that's, I think, the main mission now is to, of course, continue doing the research in malaria, but also inspire and empowering the next generation of scientists.
A last question. What is the message that you want to send to people around the world, in particular little girls around the world? Because some of them might think, oh, I'm too young to do biology, but I really love it, and only male can do that. What is your message to small girls around the world? Because, and also us on our YouTube channel, we don't have enough female scientists that we interview. Actually, you're our first female scientist. So what is your message for those little girls around the world who want to do it, but they don't think it's for them?
I'm very honored to be the first female scientist, and hopefully this can also empower others to follow through. And I think the most important thing is that for any person, female or male, is to really follow that curiosity that you have, and then don't see the barriers that might exist by the people that are already currently doing. Know that times are changing and a lot more have the opportunity to really follow through their dreams. So if, STEM, science is really something that you have genuinely interest, please go ahead and follow them, follow those dreams, because it's definitely possible that you're going to find out that at some point you're going to be yourself leading a scientist and having a lab.
Thank you very much for your time, Filipa. Thank you very much.
It was a
to let
pleasure.
us interview you, and especially, thank you very much. And welcome to the family.
Thank
Inspiration.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.